Update, found out I've been dating my father for almost 4 months. Firstly, I really appreciate everyone's comments, although I'm not in a mindset right now where I can take them seriously. Just feels kinda weird when people tell me everything's going to be alright when my entire life is in shambles. I do think I'm doing way better than I should. I think I'm just associating though. I think I need to talk about my mother first. A lot of people have a lot to say about her, and I just think I need to set some things straight. She is not a bad person and did everything she could to raise us to the best of her ability. She's also a black single mom living in a country where she is a minority and which put a lot of roadblocks in her way, but she always made sure to give my brother and I the best childhood she could. When I think of her, I only have fond, loving memories. Some people assumed because of some of my previous statements that we are not a close family, which is definitely not the case. We just really value independence and freedom. I live about an hour away from my mom but still visit her monthly. We call at least once a week. We just don't force each other to confess things or information the person doesn't willingly give up. My brother, for example, has always been very open about his dating life with my mom. She's met all his girlfriends and they often came to family gatherings. I'm just more private. That being said, she has not always been perfect, because no parent is. A lot of people were upset at her for not telling us about our dad, and trust me when I say that she is aware that she has made a mistake. But she also moved to another continent just to keep us away from him and make sure we never run into him. There is no way that she could have known that he would move to the same country as us years later. I'm not gonna name specifics because I don't want anyone to recognize this as me, since a lot of this is already quite specific, but she really did her best to make sure we never have to go near him, and none of this is her fault. I don't blame her in the slightest. If anything, I blame myself for being so angry at her whenever she tried to tell me or my brother about him. I was never interested in finding out more about my father. In truth, I resented him deeply for leaving my mother alone to fend for herself in a world that wanted to see her fail. Since this has come to light, a lot of things I didn't know about my family have also been brought up. I found out that my brother and my mother often talked about my father, just not in front of me, since I was so adamant to never learn anything about him. I remember throwing a tantrum because my brother kept asking when Dad's birthday was. My brother knew his full name, had seen pictures of him, and knew most of the full story of what had gone down between my mom and him. It is not my story to share as it is fully hers, and so I will not go into details, but know that he was not just emotionally abusive like I had believed my entire life, but also physically and financially. The story of him leaving when she found out I was pregnant isn't fully accurate either. He apparently harm her if she didn't get an abortion, and so she packed her things up and left him. According to her, he never reached out or tried to find her, and she moved to make sure it would stay that way. She really just tried to protect us, and I'll never be able to truly articulate how grateful I am. Obviously, finding out about all this just makes me feel worse. I always shut them out when they tried to tell me about my father and refused to learn anything about him because I naively presumed that I was better than him and therefore didn't need to bother learning anything about a man I wasn't good enough for. Obviously that backfired, and here we are. Thankfully, my mother does not blame me whatsoever. She is extremely understanding of my side, and we've convinced her to find a therapist, and she also joined group counseling for victims of domestic violence. My brother, on the other hand, is absolutely livid. I felt we had to tell him eventually, and after consulting with my therapist we decided to just rip it off like a band-aid. Set him down, and I basically first told him I was gay. He did not care, as expected. Then that I was into older men. He was very confused where this was going and also why I was telling him. I don't think he was ready for it or took it well. And then that I met Dad, and that bomb kinda hit and took all his attention at first because he's always wanted to meet him and really struggled with not having a father. Unlike me, his excitement quickly faded though when he connected the dots of me being into older men, meeting Dad and my mom, and my weird and worrying behavior for the past days. It messed him up pretty bad. I really regret telling him at all. He can't come to terms with it and is visibly disgusted by the thought, as he always viewed our father as our father, while I viewed him as some afterthought sperm donor that ran off. He hasn't really talked to me since we told him, and when he does, it's disgusting remarks, insults, or passive aggression.